It's like a miracle. We are on time, practically on time, so we should also try to be ready for the lunch after a large debate. Huge number of questions, please. Thank you so much for this very dynamic first morning session, but was not that evident because morning, after breakfast and before coffee, and on languages. But you see language issues are still so delicate and so crucial for education tout court, and we are quite happy that we put it on the program as one of the most challenging issues for education policy and education rights and human rights tout court. And that is also the case for the topics of the second session. We debated at large at last conferences in Bologna, in Lisbon, in Budapest on academic freedom. We did not that much on teachers. So what is binding, what could be bridging both notions? Academic freedom, it is the most complex, one of the most intriguing notions of higher education law and education policy and human rights and jurisprudence. Embedded in some national legislation, in some constitutions, not that many, chiefly in the more modern constitutional regimes, you will find it with a huge debate on what is the meaning of academic freedom. It's a value, it's an international norm, European value, European norm, European standards and right, embedded in European legislation also. And debated at large, even last weeks, last months, large debate on academic freedom. Yes, of course, the academics do rely on academic freedom, but also to some extent the students. Well, don't they? And again, comparative constitutional law is articulating in which countries the students have a prominent right to rely on academic freedom. And also the collective identity, the collective entity can rely on academic freedom. We have that debate in several European and American campuses on opinion about conflicts dealing with human rights, for instance, the Gaza, and strikes of students. Should the university take a position on the Gaza war? And newspapers just published an opinion that the university should remain neutral. And I wrote an article against that statement, that the university should be neutral, and I mentioned that the university, according to my opinion, cannot be neutral, has to take positions, definitely in cases where human rights are at stake. Well, academic freedom, and of course, freedom of speech is not the same as academic freedom, and we, again, can rely on publications of several of our ELA members on academic freedom. And on teachers, the second issue on teachers. All international documents, as I mentioned yesterday, on the world summits in all those capitals of last 2-3 years, UN summits in Brussels, in Paris, in New York, and in Brazil, and probably also next week in Korea, South Korea, in all evidence, will again pay lip services to the role of the teachers. Again, read those summit reports. The teachers is the key. Of course, the teacher is the key. Is the mediator, is the instructor, is the key person. And as I mentioned yesterday, in loco parentis, but still is much more than. It's when teachers are unqualified, the whole education system is collapsing. That we are quite. So both are, to some extent, bridged academic freedom and teachers, because both of them are endangered, are under attack, are at risk, if I may say so. Again, on the long debate about shortages of teachers, and again, lip services. Massive arguments, all parameters, indicators worldwide are showing that we have to invest massively in qualification and in number of teachers, and on the same time, several regimes are cutting down, are firing teachers on a massive. So it's lip service. It is a quite intriguing issue indeed. So how to introduce Professor Aušrinė? Let me do it in the same way as I did it in New Delhi. That sounds spectacular. Sounds spectacular. I raised the question. Well, do you know this statement? It's a proverb from China. I learned much from my teachers. I learned more from my peers, from my colleagues, but the most I learned from my students. I had the huge honor to be was a promoter of the academic freedom-linked PhD work of Aušrinė, what was a wonderful. Aušrinė is a bridging person herself. Vice Dean, to some extent a bureaucrat, dealing with international affairs of her faculty of law in Kaunas. Visit Kaunas, wonderful European city, historic campus, historic place, just great. Probably we will have the chance, we will come to that topic later in our EXCO meeting at 6 o'clock, the planning of activities for next year. Kaunas, and again, now in Finland, at a very high-profiled Center for Advanced Studies in Helsinki, Faculty of Law in Helsinki, where she is leading research projects, being the editor-in-chief of a highly respected journal. So, a woman of all seasons, an academic of many seasons. Aušrinė, you have the floor.
Thank you, Professor, for introduction. As always, very nice. So it's really a pleasure to be here, and thanks, Pablo, for organizing this conference and inviting to speak here. So yes, as you mentioned, one of the elements of academic freedom, and a very important one, is freedom from students' perspective. Unfortunately, today I will not concentrate on this aspect, and somehow usually it is left behind. Usually everyone concentrates on academics. So I will discuss academic freedom, a relationship with technologies. As academic freedom is widely recognized as a vital right for academics, it often lacks direct and specific legal protection. Instead, claims from infringements or limitations on academic rights are typically framed in broader legal terms. For example, on international level, such claims are usually addressed as human rights claims, for example, freedom of expression, while at national level they are often brought under various administrative law provisions, rather than being argued as violations of academic freedom itself. And this observation highlights an important point. The protection of academic freedom depends significantly on related, more general legal frameworks rather than on laws explicitly addressing academic freedom. And take, for example, Lithuania, after regaining independence in 1990, The country sought to restore academic freedom as a direct response to its suppression during the Soviet times. And some elements of academic freedom, freedom of research and teaching, as Jan just mentioned, that only some constitutions have explicitly academic freedom enshrined. So in Lithuania, we have freedom of research and teaching explicitly included into the constitution. And then, of course, academic freedom was enshrined in 1991, law on science and studies, which established autonomy and academic freedom for higher education institutions. And early reforms in higher education sector placed a very strong emphasis on restoring and prioritizing these freedoms. Yet, despite this focus, direct legal protection of academic freedom remains limited. And to illustrate, I just recently did research trying to find case law where academic freedom as such would be mentioned. So since 1991, there are 104 cases that mention academic freedom. However, only 17 out of these 104 cases engaged, although briefly, with the concept and value of academic freedom. In the remaining cases, it was just incidentally mentioned as a part of the title of the legal provision of law on higher education and research. So this reinforces the point that academic freedom is deeply influenced by surrounding legal context, and therefore today I will explore a selection of issues that I believe are crucial for effective protection of academic freedom. And I will start with the freedom of research, and the first aspect is, I call it here from copy-paste to chatting and cheating. Chatting and cheating is not something I came up with, it's taken from one publication. I just really liked how it is formulated. The basic assertion in regard to freedom of research and publication is that researchers cannot create new knowledge and promote it unless they are free to inquire and to speculate. And it gives the right to determine the subject area of the research methods to pursue their scientific claim. While exercising these rights and freedoms, the researcher is also bound by certain requirements to maintain the balance between individual freedom, accountability, rights, and responsibilities. And one of these requirements concern academic integrity or academic ethics. In Lithuania, we had several court decisions, court cases that resulted in scholars losing their PhD, their doctoral degrees due to plagiarism. In these cases, the courts upheld the decisions made by the universities or by the ombudsman of academic ethics to revoke degrees after detecting instances of plagiarism. And when plagiarism detection tools became widely used, identifying these violations became easier and more systematic. And this shift in detection methods also led to increase in cases addressing academic integrity violations and instances where affected authors sought compensation for authorship infringements. And over the years, this culture regarding copy-paste practices evolved significantly. However, the emergence of new technologies, and in particular AI-based tools for academic writing, has introduced a range of new challenges. And while these tools offer really significant benefits in terms of efficiency, accessibility, But they also raise a number of important concerns about academic freedom, specifically autonomy of scholars to choose their research directions, methodologies, and the ways to express ideas. One, for example, is really a very important issue that AI-based tools brought is false positives. The increase of AI tools in academic writing has led to parallel rise of tools or methods to detect AI-generated text. While these detection tools, they aim to uphold academic integrity, they also pose significant challenges, especially when they produce false positives. Detection tools use algorithms to analyze patterns, predictability, linguistic features that might indicate AI-generated text. False positives occur when the text written by a human is mistakenly flagged as AI-generated. And this can happen due to stylistic similarities, use of formal academic language, or even reliance on established writing conventions that mimic AI-generated patterns. So the concern is that it may have a chilling effect on creativity, as scholars may start avoiding innovative writing styles or unconventional expressions due to fear of being flagged, in this way limiting their intellectual creativity and diversity of expression. Another thing is also problematic, that now we use actually presumption of guilt. When false positives occur, the burden falls on the accused to prove their work is original. So we reversed the presumption of innocence, putting undue pressure on scholars and potentially stifling bold or unconventional ideas. Accusation of using AI, even when unfounded, can damage scholars' reputation, creating a climate of fear and suspicion that hinders open and free academic exploration. Another important aspect is cultural and linguistic bias due to disadvantage of non-native speakers. Non-native English speakers often rely on standard language or translation tools which might resemble AI-generated text. And detection tools trained predominantly on native English collection of texts may flag their work disproportionately, perpetuating inequities in global academic participation. Biases may also arise due to specific disciplines. Fields with highly technical or repetitive language, for example, law, medicine, might produce texts that detection tools misinterpret as AI generating, leading to false accusations in certain disciplines. Another very important thing is standardization of academic writing. Once John Stuart Mill argued that truth emerges best from a marketplace of ideas from which no opinion is excluded. However, the risk there is the risk that with the application of AI tools for academic writing, we move towards uniformity over originality. Many tools rely on predefined algorithms that suggest standard phrasing, structure, and style. The AI offers commonly used expressions and terms that are widely accepted in certain specific contexts. And over time, the repeated use of standard templates could lead to homogenized academic writing, overshadowing unique styles or methodologies that deviate from the norm, discouraging creative or unconventional writing styles. The suggestions provided by artificial intelligence may unintentionally pressure academics to conform to a particular style or tone, potentially limiting the diversity of academic voices. And the last point is over-reliance on artificial intelligence. Excessive reliance on AI tools for tasks like drafting, editing, or citations can erode scholars' critical engagement with their own work, diminishing intellectual autonomy. Studies revealed that regular utilization of dialogue systems is linked to a decline of cognitive abilities, diminished capacity for information retention, and an increased reliance on these systems for information. This over-reliance often occurs without verifying the validity and authenticity of the provided data. And the convenience of AI tools might lead researchers to accept AI-generated suggestions without sufficient scrutiny, potentially reducing the depth and rigor of academic inquiry. And over time, habitual reliance on artificial intelligence for drafting or editing could reduce the critical thinking and linguistic creativity scholars bring to their writing. And then a number of issues on the other element of academic freedom. It is freedom of teaching. The first one is digitalization of teaching materials. So now many classes in our days take place online, and they are recorded or pre-prepared. And digitalization of teaching materials has led university instructors to develop a self-contained, easily reproducible instructional packages as opposed to notes written on a board. And digital teaching materials are often require a standardized, uniform templates and formats that might limit instructors' ability to present content in a spontaneous or personalized way or manner. And that can also prevent instructors from adapting materials to meet diverse needs of the students or unique pedagogical goals. Also, digitalized digital materials, to prepare them, it requires a lot of time and effort, and also a lot of time and effort to update digital materials. So learning to use and manage EdTech, education technology tools is really time consuming. And having in mind the constant evolution of education technologies requires a lot of effort, not to lag behind. And all this digital context may actually detract researchers, academics from content creation or pedagogical innovation, or may just lead to lack of motivation to adapt teaching to current issues, new research, or evolving class dynamics. There is an argument that the reproducibility of digital materials might unintentionally fossilize teaching content and discouraging instructions from revisiting or rethinking their approaches. Another important aspect is losing uniqueness and heading towards standardization. And I loved this part, and I took it from a publication that I read. It's also not something I came up with, but it just sounded really nice. The authors argue that before the digital age, each lecture was unique, and each class was a kind of a performance. And they say in this way it was like similar to jazz, because the performers varied with the audience and context. Because the professor was a solitary craftsman, there was no way to mediate between him and his art. It was also difficult to evaluate good teaching because it was something very subjective and hard to capture in some objective template. And now we have digital materials that are easily archived and shared, which can subject an instructor's teaching content to review or scrutiny by administrators or external bodies. And that can actually discourage controversial or experimental approaches for fear or of criticism or censorship. And this may lead to a teaching environment in which an academic may prefer safety through conservatism than actually challenging students to discuss more controversial statements, topics, questions, and have discussions. Therefore, choosing to be more conservative and to avoid certain topics or discussions that are inconvenient, controversial, may limit dissemination of knowledge and fostering free and critical thinking, which does not come in line with freedom of teaching or academic freedom. So academic freedom does not achieve its purpose to serve the common good. Digital revolution has also brought the emergence of new classes of academic professionals, and that significantly transformed the landscape of higher education, because now we have a number of professionals working to prepare the class, like media experts, instructional designers, data analysts, retention experts, and they all bring specialized skills that blend pedagogy with digital technology mastery, shaping how education is designed and delivered. And now the professor is no longer the lone performer, rather he or she works together with the team, and that actually leads to standardization because we all become rather similar. So while these professionals, they bring their technological expertise, there's a risk of prioritizing technological solutions over sound pedagogical principles. Academics are frequently encouraged to incorporate innovative tools into their teaching, yet this is not always accompanied by a critical evaluation of their pedagogical relevance. And in some cases, these tools are adopted simply for the sake of using technology rather than because they enhance learning outcomes. And the last point is the digital analysis of patterns. Digital tools can track teaching methods, research topics, publication outputs, and even classroom interactions. And this data might be used to evaluate or rank faculty performance, potentially pressuring academics to conform to institutional priorities rather than pursuing independent lines of inquiry. In the digital classroom, there's actually a physical record of every transaction that takes place there. Every discussion post, every essay, every teacher comment is captured for posterity. Data of thousands of classes can be analyzed, sorted, compared, interpreted, and it becomes possible to find and analyze patterns of faculty interaction, encouragement, and areas of difficulty. Pattern analysis often identifies best practices based on aggregated data, which might then be promoted as a standard. Faculty may feel compelled to adhere to these standards, limiting their freedom to innovate, interpret, rethink, or question the assumptions of their disciplines or tailor their approaches to specific context. Tools that analyze engagement of performance may suggest changes to teaching methods, while potentially useful, they can really bring many good aspects into the classroom. These recommendations could pressure instructors to conform to data-driven, optimal approaches, reducing freedom to experiment with pedagogical innovations. So the classroom may become a place where data can replace expert judgment of the professor. So these are the main aspects for limiting or challenging freedom of research and teaching I wanted to present today. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a master class on challenges, tensions, risks. Yeah, great, superb. Thanks so much. Well, of course, most of us have to practice academic freedom to some extent. Some of us what I would propose is that we will, if you agree, we will first open the floor on this issue, because teacher is something. If you agree, yes, are you happy with that? Thank you. So it's some of us, most of you did also publish on the issue, research on the issue. So it's a question who is extremely relevant for all of us, and also for academia, and also for, as you mentioned, for the common good, definitely. So because all of you are involved in this issue, some of you even were inspiring the special rapporteur on this report on academic freedom a couple of months ago. So that counts for some in this auditorium, and some took even the pen to suggest some passages and some paragraphs of the whole text of the recommendations. Voilà. So floor is yours, Klaus. No, yeah, Klaus, and then Pablo, will you take first and then Klaus? No. Okay.
I will give the mic. Thanks so much, Aušrinė, for a wonderful talk. I remember that one of Jan's texts actually is about extending the 4 A's to include some new A's. Mm-hmm. And one of them is accountability. And I've written recently something on this, and I was very critical of the term accountability. And we had nice discussions with Jan about this. So I think one should call to mind that one of the prime reasons also to drive the agenda is the talk about accountability, that education must be accountable, that students as consumers pay a lot of money for their education, and that therefore the whole datification and observation and surveillance is an act of actually exercising accountability as to outcomes and as to teachers performing according to best practices. So what is your take on the discussion of accountability in this context? Is it abuse the context, the word? Or should we rather speak about responsibility maybe? Then the A scheme doesn't work, of course, anymore.
We will take perhaps question by question, because it is quite specific. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think there can be really good examples of how technologies can be used, and these patterns that actually now arising from data analysis, they can really help to work with the quality in education. But I think that it is rather obvious that, and I myself, when I teach the class, I always have in mind whether it is recorded, whether there's going to be a video for many upcoming years, and how I behave or how I ask questions or formulate them, or what topics do I bring into the classroom. And I think that in this regard, there is a danger, and it should be taken into account. However, I really think that technologies bring many positive aspects, and I had a chance to participate in this presentation of different technological tools, and I saw many issues, but then I also saw many positive suggestions how it could make the work easier, or how it could help students that are facing problems while studying at the university. So there's definitely room for application of technologies. But then, like these aspects of academic freedom, they are crucial. And if we really start being afraid, always teaching with a fear that it might just turn against us in the future, then there's really no point in spreading knowledge. And,
add another perspective. Shouldn't we not add just, besides accountability, responsibility, also the term liability? What about risk management? It's a question deans of faculties and even vice-chancellors should raise. And you can imagine some cases where indeed the professor or the faculty is kept liable for some judgments or some examples, and I have some cases in mind. I will not be too explicit of some universities where indeed liability was at stake. Just a few comment on liability and risk management, and then also
I believe that there could be probably there could be instances where professors abuse academic freedom and speak in the classroom or discuss certain aspects that there should be a liability in these cases, but it's the same. It's this fear then of saying something very critical, and then you will just start being conservative and avoiding these types of discussions in your classroom. Exactly the same aspect.
How provocative can you still remain if you've got to make it a little bit more vivid, your classes and your lectures? You are hindered in your freedom, so to say. You should perhaps, if we have the time, also shortly detect your comparative study with Sweden.
Well, it's still on the go, so I wouldn't probably be able now to draw some kind of conclusions already, because I'm working on my Lithuanian part and my colleague is working on Swedish part that I still haven't received and read, so this would be difficult to do the comparison.
Yeah. Gero Peretta, then Leonor, and then
I also wanted
Pablo.
But
Okay, yeah, Pablo. Yeah,
perhaps
first.
we should try to keep it short, because otherwise we're going to take too much time of Boróka's.
No, but we definitely will room enough time for Boróka, without any doubt. Yeah, sure.
I wanted to thank Aušrinė for the effort of coming. I know it's not easy to reach Albacete from Helsinki, and congratulate you on a very relevant presentation. I think it was very good. You touched on many things. And just to keep it short, I would like to ask a question. You have referred to the risks for teachers and the suspicion sometimes and what we might do wrong. What do you think is a responsibility of teachers in an environment increasingly influenced, perhaps soon dominated by artificial intelligence or by technologies in education? But perhaps we should gather some more questions so that it won't be too long. Is that okay?
Okay. Thank you. I just a really short and technical question. You mentioned that the data-driven school management or use of data for teaching methods is a kind of tool. Do you have know-how how to teach teachers to use these data? Because it's not self-evident. It's an absolute knowledge that have to be taught to the teachers to be able to use data for choosing teaching methods and pedagogical methods. Thank you.
Thank you, Aušrinė, for your presentation. I have a question about how to regulate the adoption of AI in university. In this period, I think many university colleges think about the best way to introduce rules for address behavior, correct behavior of researcher, professor in teaching research. For example, the last week in Bologna, during the academic senate, we adopted the guidelines for the use of AI in teaching and research, but is a very general, abstract indication that don't have correct implication. So what do you think about the best way to regulate behavior in academia?
Thank you. And there is the last, I'm share with you this idea that we shouldn't fear. We shouldn't make our job with, perform our job teaching with fear of this digitalization. But last week we were discussing in the board of the law faculty in Granada the problem of not digitalization but platformization, you could say, of materials, of teaching materials. So that is when you give a lesson and the students take notes, and those notes are in a platform, are sold in a platform. And there was no way we could, lawyers, we were like 50 lawyers there, from all different fields, and we couldn't imagine a way in which we could protect ourselves or claim at least the correctness of the material was on the platform. Therefore, I think that is true. We shouldn't fear, but I don't see how can we be saved. How can we have a net that will protect our freedom of our academic freedom.
Johan Beckman.
Thank you very much for your talk to us. It seems that you've been battling with many issues that have been around forever. One of the questions would be, do you think that the adding of artificial intelligence is making the situation better? I'm talking about things like you are presuming guilt. Now, I would like to know what guilt are you presuming in certain cases, and that's a curious question just from my side, because we who live in Africa have got the problem of people from neighboring African countries actually coming to our country and starting a business, writing theses and selling them. I don't know if that is one of your problems. And then you talk a lot about standardization of things. And that's another question I would like to know. Who does the standardization? Because if the standardization is done by the institution that's involved, there is a risk of problematic behavior. Thank you.
We have to ask also. Pablo, we still should ask Manja to raise some. Yeah, but there's too much luck. We're still on time, you know. So we have a break at 1:30. So we are now 12:37. So we all is under control. Pablo?
Yeah.
It's under control.
No, it's okay. Okay.
But. So please take your time to raise your answers and your comments.
Okay.
Questions raised, comments made. So it's up to you now.
Where is Balla? I wanted to answer his first, but I don't see him. So I will then continue with the last question. So the presumption of guilt. What I mean, we recently had at our university we approved the policy regarding AI use in writing thesis for the students, and I had my student calling me just a few days before the defense, because at the faculty we have the rule that all theses must be checked with plagiarism tools, and of course these tools now talk about the percentage of how many percentage there are that AI was used for while writing the thesis. And he calls me all scared and asking me, okay, so how do I tell them that I did not use it? Because if we see that the percentage is 57, well, there's quite a big chance that the AI tool was used for writing the thesis. So we say that he is guilty of being unethical while writing his thesis, and we force him to explain himself that he did or did not, or where and how he used AI tools. So this is how it is these days, and of course it was very complicated, because to explain that I didn't use it and somehow to prove it that you didn't use it, although he was my student and I knew him from the beginning. He was writing in a constant manner, and the text I read a couple of times. So that was problematic, actually. And one of my suggestions was, I said, just say that you used it for translation. But he was like, but I didn't use it. Why would I say something like that? So it was quite complicated issue that we had with the students, and now these policies work in this way, and we cannot explain why this tool gives a certain percentage regarding this probability of AI usage in the thesis, but this is the reality. The selling thing, we have criminal liability now, but it's very still happening, and it is also an issue. And we had a very interesting case where the student who bought master thesis sued the company who wrote the thesis due to bad quality. So that was like, yeah. So of course she was expelled from the university for that, but she got her money back. So yeah, that was the case. And the standardization, yes, we can talk about institutional level, because this is where the tools come from, because the university decides which tools should be used, which platform should be used, and that kind of makes, there's this frame that we all are trying to fit in. So yeah, I am talking about the institutional level.
But she's back.
So about the tools, now in practice, I think it's just on the go, on the way to become used, but not yet, as to my knowledge, that these type of tools are already there, that we as teachers could learn how to use them. So no, it's just something that there's a discussion about the collection of data, and that these tools now are being created and modified to be able to use them, but not to my knowledge that we are already using them. Yeah. Angela's question about regulation. So very important, I think, aspect is, of course, institutional level. And although, yes, you said that at your university you have certain policies that are very general, but I think that at the institutional level, at least for the university students and professors, we can really do a great job, and it is easy to change them, to modify, because this is AI tools is something that is very new, and state regulation takes a long time to establish, and as AI tools are evolving very rapidly, it would take also time then to change the laws. So I think that for now the best option to regulate is at institutional level. What's that? You asked something as well.
Very difficult question, I'm afraid. After hearing the risks, what would you think could be the role of teachers? What would be the attitude of teachers in an education system very influenced by artificial intelligence?
So you mean from the positive perspective more, or like after hearing those risks?
Yeah, what can the teacher add? I mean, it's the elephant in the room. We have been addressing it, but
I think that really there are many positive things, and I use artificial intelligence sometimes for research or for teaching or for translation and etc. And I think that there are many positive things. But the good thing about us is because we grew up without these tools, and we have this capacity to understand the risks and to read something that AI gives us and to be critical about it. But the problem will be the generation that will come later, because they will grow up with these tools and they might not have this capacity. So in this regard, for us, I think that this is a positive thing. We can really exploit it in a positive way and use it in various areas, but I think then the bigger risks will be with the coming generations, because they will just not be able to, will not have the capacity to understand that it is risky. And we can definitely become better teachers with the use of technologies.
Okay, thank you so much. It was just great. So let's move quickly now to the next call. Balla, Pázmány, Péter University. I met you first, remember? Remember when I met you first in the masterclass of Prof. Barac? And you were a master student, but the most active, the most dynamic master student, raising questions, raising comments, just great. And I could just be sure that you will start an academic career as a researcher and as a committed person for academia. You presented several times already at the ELA conferences in a most marvelous way. You are one of the new stars at the ELA firmament, of the ELA community. So please take the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor, for this kind introduction. And I also would like to thank to Pablo his trust, his support, and his warm welcome. So thank you very much, and also for the ELA family to having me again, and for you, Professor. So the topic of today, what I brought you, is the safe school environment in the digital age. And I'd like to present the structure of my presentation. First, I'll tell you my problem statement, so the purpose of the presentation, which I'd like to address. Then I'll talk about children's, their online rights, the arising issues and cases which are endangering them, and I would also like to tell you about what children think. Actually, my background is I worked 3 years for a legal aid service in Hungary, and we were handling reports in various reporting categories like harmful content to minors, online harassment, and these kind of reports. And I also had to go to schools and hold preventive lectures for children and other professionals, teachers, parents. And last year I reached more than 1,000 individuals. So I had a lot of conversation with them, and I'd like to channel this kind of experience to this presentation and tell you about real life cases. The third point will be about teachers' rights, and also a topic which I think we don't really discuss that much, teachers as victims, because they are a lot of times victims of online violence. Also the role of educational institutions, as a fourth point, the system level actors, the obligations, and also what states can do for parents, because we were talking about states' obligations, but in relation to the parents, I think they have a big role to play, and I'd like to discuss it shortly. And then I'd like to present some ideas how we could move forward. So the problem statement is on the right side of the slide. You can see 3 points: education, socializing, and leisure. As you know, we can benefit from digitalization. Of course, we discussed the positive and negative sides of the impact on education, children, but actually we adults using these tools to communicate, to maintain relationships. So it's a really important achievement. And also leisure, like right to play, right to leisure. Children use these video games platforms. We watch Netflix. So those are the positive sides. And we have, of course, negative aspects. I think we talked a lot yesterday about inequalities. Also, I think Maria mentioned briefly the mental health issues like dependency, like fear of missing out. I don't know if you know that FOMO phenomenon, when you see like nice pictures on Instagram and you feel that your life is terrible, but on Instagram everyone is posting their best moments, like always traveling, always partying, always having friends, and at the same time you are sitting alone at home and you feel that your life is miserable compared to theirs. So these kind of mental health issues. And what is the purpose of this presentation is to prove that there is an interplay, there is a strong connection between education as an education institution, school environment, and the online violence. So this is what I'd like to talk about. And here we are at the second point, the rights of the child. First, we need to consider the best interest of the child. So how can children practice their human rights, and same time balancing between the right to protection. So we always need to keep in mind this principle. The second one is the right to protection and safety. And of course, with the digital change, they are facing with several kind of online dangers. And we have the obligation, state, parents, everyone, to protect and keep them safe. And of course, the third part is right to education, the 4A framework, which you all mentioned earlier. The adaptability to adapt the education system, the teachers' methods to this new era and the children's needs, and maybe that they need these kind of colorful presentations. Maybe they can learn different way. Maybe they need to also do handwriting, but maybe they need something else too, and we need to adapt to those changes. We need to be aware of these new challenges. We need to recognize the online dangers, and we need to teach them how to recognize these kind of problems. And I'd like to tell you about 4 online threats, which are in a lot of international guidelines. I also see this from my work experience, and also, for example, annual reports of hotline, helplines. So the first one is cyberbullying. I think you all know that. It's the online peer-to-peer violence using digital platforms, but actually it happens quite often that they do something in person, like a fight, and then they record it, and then they put it online, and the harassment starts. So it's it has 2 sides or 2 faces, or it's mixed, but that's the point of cyberbullying. The second one is online grooming, when a predator uses a digital platform to build a trust between him or her and the child, and then exploit them often for sexual purposes. And then the next step, usually sexual extortion, sextortion, then they getting kids to share nude pictures, and then they blackmail them to get money or personal meeting or other sexual content. And the worst is child sexual abuse material, which is also called as child pornography. When there is an imaginary which shows children in a sexually explicit behavior. So these are the most dangerous and problematic problems which children are facing. And now I brought you 3 cases, and these cases are based on my experiences with the children and also the reports, as I told you. And I'd like to highlight the main points through these kind of cases. So this first case is about an Instagram account which was created in a public school in a bigger city in Hungary. The victims were 13 years old, and the point of this Instagram account was to posting pictures about children, I mean, like teenagers, children, and then they said, okay, if you pay me 10 euro, then I'll send nudes for you about those children who are posted on the post. And there were unknown offenders from school. It was uncertain whether they actually had the pictures or not, but that was the case, and it's been going on for quite a while, and no one actually knew, like, okay, but who is behind this? What's going to happen? And of course, if someone was posted, okay, I can send you nudes about that person, that person was harassed at school, like cyberbullied, and you know, you can imagine what happens in school. And the major points or the key takeaways from this case is that every young children are affected. So we saw in this case that's 13 years old, but also 11 years old, 10 years old. So this number is getting lower and lower. This happens almost daily, not necessarily this kind of things, but other kind of really creative things. So I'm always shocked and surprised. So we never know, like, what will be the next, and there is no limit. The school community can become a place for humiliation, the school in person, but also the online community, and children are at risk even at school. And the problem or the main question is that school in these kind of cases cannot stay uninvolved. So they need to be involved in some way. There are several ways or solutions for that, but that's for sure that they need to be involved. And then I think this is the most interesting part when I tell you about what children think or what I heard from the conversations I had with them. The first is it's only between bros, like mates, like I don't know, friends, which means that there is a group of boys, they are friends, and they say that, okay, I got a nude picture from a girl, and I'm gonna just send it to my friends, like the closest friends. That doesn't count. And you know, when there is a secret which is known by more than 2 persons, it's not a secret anymore. Also, if someone sends it to a group chat where are, I don't know, like 5 or more people involved, that's an even more serious crime. And they are not aware of that. So they have no idea about it, and they say, no, it doesn't count because I just send it to my friends. So that's a really common thing to say. The second point is, it can't happen to me, I won't be a victim. They are 100% sure that they won't be victims. They are aware of these problems, they are smart, they know how to protect or how to catch those predators. Actually, they quite often say that, yeah, I got a text from that and that person, and I knew that it's a scam, but I started to talking with him because I wanted to see like how he responds and doing this investigator stuff, because they are so smart, and they are really aware of these things. But at the same time, we see that there are a lot of victims. So I guess they can also be victims. But it's like weird. They push away this problem from themselves. They cannot imagine. And I always brought them cases to have them to really imagine a situation. And at first I was asking, like, what would you do if you were in a situation like that? And it didn't work. So then I changed it and I said, okay, imagine that your little sister is in this kind of situation, or your friend is in this kind of situation, and that helped so they could imagine this. It happens every day, it's not a big deal. I often ask them whether they had got a nude picture, like I guess you know the phrase of dick pic. So this kind of imaginary without asking for it, and really a lot of young children already get it, and they say, well, yeah, it happens every day, so I just block them, I report them, and then that's all. It's not a big deal. But actually, it's a really big deal, and even though it happens often, which is terrible, it causes serious harm to them, to the children. But they consider it as a like an everyday occasion, and we really need to tell them that it's not okay. It's okay to feel bad about it. It's okay to feel traumatized, and you have to talk about it. So really, to drag them back to the reality that it's a serious thing. I don't need help, I can solve it alone. Yes, of course. I asked them, okay, what would you do if your sister's in this situation? I would beat that man. And I was like, okay, but he's in the other side of the world, and you don't know how to get them. And yeah, but still. So they are... the first thing that they have is violent thoughts, which is understandable at some extent. And they also say that, no, I won't ask for help from the teachers because they cannot do anything. I won't ask for help from my parents because they wouldn't let me to use that platform anymore. And I can solve it alone. It's okay. So that's also a problem and maybe a challenge to address, to think about why they don't ask for help from the teachers. What is the reason? Maybe they are uncertain about the outcome. Maybe they think that it will get worse, or a cyberbullying situation, if you tell it to a teacher, then maybe they will bully you more. So I think that's an important part to think about. And I think the worst is the victim blaming, and they say she had it coming, she deserved it, or he deserved it. And we have a huge work to do regarding this matter, victim blaming, because I think that kids are not willing to ask for help if they are blamed for this. Like, how could she be so idiot to sending those nudes and these kind of phrases? And I think children are really keeping that to themselves and not ask for help in order to avoid this kind of victim blaming. So huge work to be done in this matter again. And I brought you another case. I created an Instagram page called School Gossip, and you can read the description. Guess who just found out the secret love affair happening under our noses? Stay tuned and we uncover the truth and watch the chaos unfold. So that was a gossip site, also in a public high school, and high school students were the victims. So they uncovered like secret stories, and I tried to use like really light words, but you can imagine it was a bit tougher. And no one knew who's the creator, but they could suspect that that students are, because that was about the school students. And then, of course, humiliation, shaming, exclusion, lies are started. And I'd like to ask you to go to menti.com on your laptop or phone, menti.com, and please type this code. And you should see like a blank page, and you can write your answers. It's completely anonymous, and I'd like to ask you to answer to the question: if you were a teacher, what would your immediate thoughts and possible actions be in response to seeing that post, this post? Then this is about a student in your class. You see the comments under it that it's really humiliating. You see that this is a gossip site about your students in your school. And what would you think first? Or whom would you tell? And we can see the results, I hope. So you can see your answers on the slide. Find out about the authorship and persuade them about risks. I would hope the secret love affair is not mine. Tell them about privacy. I would bring the case to the class council, teach about privacy, mental health, bullying in class, talk openly about this with the class. Talk to the principal. Okay, I think we got really interesting answers. So to conclude, I think most of you would talk about this issue with the class, like openly, like discuss it to bring it to students. There are some who would talk to the principal, and I also wrote some answers. Actually, I'm not sure what I would do, but I thought about talking to my colleagues, tell about the principal, the headmaster, write an email to the parents. Maybe it's not the best option at first. Ask my student about the Instagram page, or talk about the issue, or report the account to Instagram. So I think those are the options, and you covered more or less. So I don't know the right answer, I don't know the right order. We can discuss it later. And this was kind of a bridge case to the third topic, teachers, because you see that teachers are really involved in this matter. And I brought a third case about teachers as victims. This was also, this happened in a public school. Mrs. Collins was a teacher there, and they created a website about her and wrote things like she's a criminal, published personal information like where she lives, who are her relatives. They posted like harassing post comments, but it was as if she would have created that website. So it was really confusing. And imagine that, what can she do with that situation? Like, she doesn't know who created it. She can make some suspicions, but she cannot really go to the police with that. So this is just a case which could happen to any of us. And I'd like to highlight 3 points. Is that when someone is anonymous online, they are more brave. They don't see the immediate effect on the other one who they are harassed. So it's kind of dangerous, more dangerous than you do it in person. So when you hide behind masks, it's more like serious. Of course, in this case, there were underage and unknown offenders. So you cannot really just prosecute underage students, and I think it's not the best way to solve it. So again, we don't know how to proceed. And the third part is that these kind of situations, teachers are involved at their working hours. So they are at home, they are seeing these posts or any kind of offense which is committed against them, like putting their faces on memes, or creating a video during class and then publish it, and harassing comments. So all the time they are involved in this, and this is, well, not over working hours, but like they cannot really put down the pen at 5 p.m. and then go home. And the plus one is teachers' well-being. So imagine the immediate effect of, or the wide distribution of reputationally harmful material. So what can it cost to them? And it's a bit different than for students. So a teacher's reputation, the whole school knows about it, the children, the parents. So it can have serious effect on their mental health. And there are some rights I highlighted. There are no teachers' rights as a convention on the rights of the child, but there are rights which are applicable to this case, but also teachers' life, human dignity, of course, privacy rights, as we saw in this case, that everything was published about her, working time, what I mentioned before, professional development, academic freedom, and freedom of expression. It comes to my mind, that's also an interesting topic, how teachers communicate with children. What if someone wants to add the teacher on Facebook? What if someone texts them on Messenger after working hours? How they keep contact with the parents, with the children? So it's also another thing they need to think through. And the authority of the school, I read policies, of course I searched for a lot of policies, and especially in the UK, they encourage schools to use school disciplinary measures on their students, even though they committed something after school hours online. So if there is a case between two children who are in the school, who are students, but they are doing it after school hours, they are still should be prosecuted in the school setting. And I was really shocked, surprised, because I tend to feel in Hungary that everyone is like, no, it's not my thing, it's not my fault, it's not my case. So the school points the parents point the school. And I was surprised that they say, okay, we should take responsibility, we should take the lead in this matter. So it's a question of liability, obligation, and I thought about some examples, like when someone is smoking after school, outside of school, and the teacher sees them. It's not okay to to prosecute them or discipline them for something which happened outside of the school, or if two students having a fight after school at the park, does the school have the right to intervene in this kind of situation? So I also don't know the answer, but that's really interesting in what sense they are involved or not. And we are almost at the conclusion. This is a chart, the EU average of the above basic and the basic digital skills. What you can see at the like the bottom of the slide, you can see the age, so 55 to 66, and which I would like to highlight is it only which is above 50% is only the ones who have at least basic digital skills, and they are between 54 and 25, but it's only like 70%, as you can say, and 5 elements which need to be considered: information and data literacy, communication and collaboration, digital content creation, safety and problem solving. So they are measuring that. And imagine this is the EU average of parents, teachers, adults, policymakers, lawyers. So this is the situation now about basically digital literacy. And what to teach, it's kind of an online to-do list for parents, and imagine this kind of digital literacy and skills, and then see on this slide what they should teach to children, like family device rules, staying engaged online, explore together educational website, games, having honest dialogue. But for that, for example, they should know what their children are doing online, like what platforms they are using, like know TikTok or see the videos with them, teach to be a good digital citizen. So that's really cool. That would be really nice, and I think that's the goal, to empower parents to be able to teach these things to the children, but I think it's not the case. And to go back to the role of the school, or the teachers to stepping in when parents cannot fulfill their obligations or duties. So I think there is extra pressure on teachers in that matter. And the role of online platform is just like really briefly, the DSA, the Digital Services Act, now imposes obligations on the biggest online platforms like Meta, TikTok. I think it's really good because they have now legal obligation to protection of minors from harmful online content, protection against online harassment and abuse. They need to do education material and raising awareness, and also they can be sanctioned and held accountable. And it's just interesting question again, as the professor said. Who is responsible, whose obligation is that? Apply legal sanctions to deter online offenders, even minors, identify potential risks and respond to them, establish rules, prevent and address. So I would say it can be the schools, the adults, the parents, the teachers, the state, of course, mostly the state, the students. So those are, I think, really relevant questions. And as for the conclusion, the potential routes, I would say that prevention is really important to everyone in all possible forms and all platforms. The second one is protocols. I think policymaking, we also addressed that during this conference before. But if there is a really strict, transparent guidelines or framework, which everyone knows, what happens if I hand in a complaint, what happens if I tell it to my teacher, what will be the next step, what will be the outcome. So when it's transparent, that I think that they are more willing to ask for help. And this policy can be also customized based on the school, the environment, the parents, the socio-economic background. But I think it's really necessary to set like really strict rules on these matters. The empowerment, I think, to ask children to involve them in problems which are affecting them is really important, because we always say big things and think that, okay, we need to solve this problem, but it's affecting them. We should ask them, okay, but what do you think about this situation? You are in that. How would you solve it? What's your view on that? For example, child-friendly reporting system, or when they help each other to solve these things. And another, just the last interesting point is that in Hungary, phones were forbidden by law from this September. And I don't really believe in this kind of solution because it doesn't solve the problem at all. But at the same time, I see that there are positive sides of these restriction. But yeah, maybe Balázs has an idea on that. But so I don't think that this solves the problem. But of course, could be a good practice. And thank you for your kind attention.
Well, again, a magic presentation. Thank you so much for your holistic view on how living problematic experiences have to meet law in education and in schools. Thank you so much. It's extremely relevant and exciting and inviting for comments, questions. Klaus.
Thank you, Boróka. It was a very good presentation. I don't know if you guys saw it last night on the news that Australia became the first country in the world to ban social media accounts for children under 16, I think. What do you think of that?
Okay, perhaps, what do you prefer? Gather all questions or one moment?
Gather.
Together? Okay, yeah, yes, please.
Thank you very much, Boróka. I really, really enjoyed this. My research also is in the area of child and adult abuse, particularly with people with disability. Have you done any work or in your big sample with, it's impressive how many children are involved. Are there any children with disability? Because we know that sometimes persons with disabilities are very isolated, so a lot of their socialization actually takes place online, which makes them particularly vulnerable in those situations. And we find that a lot of schools have good prevention programs, etc., but somehow kids with disabilities are not included in the prevention programs. Thank you.
Good point, yes. Next, please. Yeah,
Thank you very much, Boróka. Very excellent presentation, very comprehensive. We think this is a very complex problem to face from different point of view, from the school, students, parents, teachers, head teacher, and so on. What do you think about the way the school can create a co-responsibility with parents to address this problem? Because for example, in this moment, we have a project in Trento. The title is Disconnection. Disconnection of the parents first. Because the impression is that we don't have good addressing by the parents to use new technology. This is the problem. Because we need to educate first adult students.
It's always bad when the promoter wants to ask, but Professor Paletta just asked my question. But let me a bit enlarge the scope that this shared responsibility how do you think that the school, the family, and as you mentioned, the state can share this responsibility? And it is an important thing to remember always that education starts first in the family. This is the first level of education for everyone, and that's very important to know.
Super. Yeah, well, this is the
Yeah.
first round. The second round.
Connecting, maybe it's connecting. Well, thank you, Boróka. I'm very happy to have been able to invite you to Albacete, to a university. I have seen you discuss this topic with variations, but over a few years now, and it's wonderful to see how it's changing and how your view is also becoming more mature, more perfect about it, and more complex. So it's really a pleasure to have you here. Connecting to Balázs's question, I have been thinking myself whether it would be useful to somehow help parents address these things. Should we create some kind of programs for parents who are concerned, and also to raise awareness in parents who are not concerned about the risks of digital technologies? I don't know if prohibition is going to be successful. I think there are so many ways to go around it, but anyway, at least it shows that there is a public effort of concern about this. But, well, please, feel free.
Yes, thank you very much for your questions and ideas you shared. First, I'd like to address your question. I think it's really important to educate parents, to raise awareness, to create programs which help them, because as you said, the first place of education is at home. But it's a question what the school's role in that, because the school is a system and parents are involved, obviously, because of their kids. And it would be like easy or natural to educate the parents at the school. So, for example, in the parents' meeting, what they have regarding the children. But also, we cannot oblige parents to, okay, you need to attend in this school meeting and you will be educated on how to educate your children in the digital environment. But I think if school would take a leading role and as to offer them the possibility to go there to gain some knowledge about this matter, that could be really helpful. And also the family, I think the most important thing is to talk, to be a trust, to be interested in what your children do online, to talk and to set rules like, okay, if this happens or that happens, you must tell, because that's a red line, that's a red flag. And if the children has trust in the parents, then that works. So they will ask for help, and that's the most important. And parents should be told about these things, and I think the school is a really good channel to them. About disability, I haven't done research on that topic, but you're right, it's really important. And I also know from like hotline reports that they are especially at risk, even higher risk. So yes, that's really an issue we should address, and thank you for raising my attention to that. And Australia and social platforms. I really like the idea what TikTok did is that you can register only above 13 years, but you have limited access to the functions between 13 and 16, and then between 16 and 18 you can get access to more things, like you can post or I don't know exactly. But I think this kind of regulation, when you have step-by-step approach how you are learning to use this platform, I think it's a good idea. But the other problem is with the identification, because I can, of course, lie about my age. A lot of kids have a social media account when they are 8 years old. I don't believe in banning things or forbid things, because that makes it even more interesting for children. I think we should let them to use, just help them to provide some guidance, to be by their side. So that's my view on that. It's I think it's not the best way to go. I think that was all. Yeah. Yes, I think.
Can I comment something? I just, it's not a question, but just as we are talking about awareness, I will just share a good practice of what we do in our country. So we have this project, we call it the street law. And with this project, we go to schools, and it's actually very popular. Schools register and want to participate, inviting us to come, where we talk about all these issues that you mentioned now in your presentation. So we talk about what is liability for infringement of right to privacy, whether you can post a picture without someone's opinion about that. We also talk about possession of narcotic or psychotropic substances. And we also, what we do, we take a judge together to the meetings, where the judge actually gives, tells about actual cases where children were accused and sentenced, and actually it affects all those children in the classroom. And so we discuss all these very actual relevant topics for that kind of age of kids. That's why it's called street law. So this is what they actually face. Also civil liability, like if there's harm done at school or, as you mentioned, outside the school, so who's liable in these cases. We tell them about exact numbers when of compensation that the court established. And so this is really something that I think that works, and I'm happy that I am involved in this project that we have. Yeah.
We have definitely to gather the best practices. To be quite relevant indeed. To what extent can you formalize duties and rights in a contract between the family and the school? Not adding perhaps a vade mecum, but some information in annexes to the, between brackets, the school contract, when your girl, your boy will be enrolled at that school, between parents and the pupils and the school, kind of a trilateral agreement, to some extent formalized in the contract. Is that an option?
Actually, there are some suggestions to do a digital contract inside the family. So, like, we are not using a phone during dinner, or we are doing some online activity together, like playing on the PlayStation, and then stop it, or we are not using phone after 10. So these contracts, like digital contracts, can work in the family.
That is within the family. That's something different, I guess. But between the family, or between the parents, the pupils, and the school. Mm-hmm. There are several examples of education law dealing with the school contract. But when you have to enroll, you have knowledge about your rights and duties, and about due processes, about procedures, in case that you have to some extent to formalize. Not over detailed, but still with some practices, you can make, we call it a contract. It's a specific agreement when families, the parents, and including also the pupil from a certain age is involved in a legally relevant relationship. Kurt?
Oh, there goes the laptop. We have those type of three-party contracts in Flanders, which is perhaps why you gave the example. But the issue is the enforcement, since you cannot punish the child for the behavior of the parents. So when the parents don't do what's in the three-party contract, then how are you going to enforce it? And of course, there's the proposition of our new Minister of Education to take away the child support and the child allowance if the parents misbehave, which will have a gigantic socioeconomic effect, because one of those obligations of the parents is to talk Dutch at home and not the native language. So you reach disadvantage in the minority groups and take away this already socioeconomic disadvantage families from the money they need in order to get a proper education. So enforcement is the issue there with the three-party contracts, although from purely a symbolic point of view, I like the idea a lot.
May I add, if it's not fulfilled and not enforced, because maybe the consequences are too harsh to enforce it sometimes, what happens to the authority of those who drafted the agreement or asked the other parties to? So you're...
There are some examples. There are models of contract agreement between the parents, including the child from a certain age and the school. In case there is misbehavior, that could be a sanction between brackets, and there is a wide range of sanctions. Not criminalizing parents. That's another issue because that's chiefly about dropout when the child is not attending school. That's extreme. But in case of, can you ask for some silence outside the aula? In case of misbehavior, the child also. So there are several cases.
The idea of a three-party agreement is that parents have a responsibility and need to take their responsibility as a co-responsibility we're talking about here. But how are you going to enforce the co-responsibility of the parent?
Well, it is still in legal terms relevant, and you have to take care of. Well, you have to oversee the proportionality. The more heavy the criminal between brackets or the misbehavior, the more you should reply. You should have some remedial actions. Again, there I will refer to the doctoral thesis of Maria Tereineke on remedial justice. If a child is misbehaving vis-à-vis another child, well, there should be some, if possible, some positive actions, also in educational terms, a positive remedial. So there is some evidence and some good practices on this issue. Sorry, Balaci, you wanted to react on this issue.
Thank you. Just a kind of question to make it clear. In Hungary, we have a model, a kind of practice. This is not a legally binding thing. This is not codified, but it's a model. A church-run schools, in Christian schools as well, and the Jewish school. I know this practice that in the moment the child gets into the institution, into the school. There is a contract where the parents accept the ideology and the religion of the school.
The character of the school.
The character of the school.
Charter,
the religious character of the school. And if not, they break it somehow. There is a possibility to find the solution, whether to just stop the cooperation between or to repair the relation and so on.
And enrolling your child in the school does mean that you have to accept the character and the mission of the school. Otherwise, you have not the freedom of education anymore. You have.
This is an add-on.
No, the child.
No, the child.
The child.
May I just raise a motion to continue the over lunch. No, because it's getting trilateral somehow.
Pietro, we have still 5 minutes in collective reasoning and reflecting,
Okay.
and now we will go for lunch in exactly
The
3
motion
minutes.
is rejected. That would be enough.
No, we will accept it, but in 3 minutes, finalizing, because there are still questions. Okay, go ahead.
Shortly. First, I want to congratulate you for your brilliant presentation. You're a perfect example what children needs of the new role of education. You show perfectly what you want to, and in a clear way. So it's accessible to everyone to understand. And at this point, we must note that children are smart. Children are young people, but really smart. And they learn a lot about imitating. They imitate at home, they imitate at school. So maybe they have not its own responsibility of their parents' behavior, and sometimes imitates bad behavior. But at this point, I think government has to lead as well, to reroute the behavior of these children. So teachers are a good leadership to say, well, what you're doing is not good. Why are you doing this? Empathize, to try to understand why they act by the way they're acting, and talk to them like smart people that will be the citizens of our society. And about these people with disability, yes, in fact, they are the most affected. By my investigations, around 90% of children with disability are discriminated at school, even they get suicide, all of them. So it's a big issue, it's a big deal that they have to face the government. So thank you so much.
Thank you, that was the best conclusion we could imagine. Thank you so much. Let us express our highest estimation for both lecturers.